All right, welcome to the next presentation for Aligned 2017, our virtual summit. We're here featuring the best and brightest minds, the practitioners, the experts, and B2B sales and marketing alignment. And I have here one of the brightest minds for sure, Dionne Mischler, who is a renowned longtime inside sales leader and who I just had the pleasure of finally meeting in person at the ASP Leadership Summit. So Dionne, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm great. We've done several of these interviews before, and I'm excited to have you on for this one to talk specifically about how inside sales teams can align and really start being successful here in 2017. So yeah, let's dive right in. You've got a great background. You've been around the block a time or two, and start by telling people what your role is and what your experience is and what you're currently doing with Inside Sales by Design.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me too. And it's always so fun to talk about inside sales and further dispel the myth that it's professional telemarketing. So thank you for having me. My background, I've been in sales and tech now for about 20 years. And with that, I've had the privilege of working for not-for-profits. I've had the privilege of working for startups, established organizations, mostly in technology from a services standpoint as well as hardware and software standpoint. And I started about my first official inside sales team, right? Before then, everything was just sales.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if you're doing inside, you're kind of the redheaded stepchild, which I have literally been in my lifetime. And about 10 years ago, I started my first official inside sales team. And I've since built and scaled numerous inside teams. And since about 2.5 years ago, I started Inside Sales by Design, really to take a lot of the best practices of what makes a good inside sales team to the masses. So that's really why I started Inside Sales by Design, because I believe in the power of inside sales, and I believe that when it's done the right way with the right mindset, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And we've seen there's a famous Harvard Business Review article about the changing paradigm now. Everyone's switching from field sales to inside sales. And you're right there at the forefront of that. So explain to people kind of why that's been happening and maybe how that's impacted the profession in general.
Yeah, so there's research out there that talks about the fact that, for better or worse, in 2007, the market tanked. And, well, it was for worse. But the outcomes were, right? The outcomes were they didn't want to spend as much money traveling, the rise of technology. So those are really, we have these market conditions that were a great breeding ground for inside sales to rise up. And here's my kind of unscientific 2 cents from talking with folks, though, is that as organizations like Apple made the consumer world that much easier, Amazon has gotten so prolific, right? We had to go buy a party dress for my daughter. I literally didn't know where to go. And because I don't like shopping, right? Like the days of going and walking around the mall are over for me. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I have to find her party shoes, right? Oh, where do I go to do that? And I literally just went on Amazon because it's so easy, which is a good and a bad thing, right? We have to watch how we spend our money. But it was literally click, click, found a dress, showed it to my daughter, found shoes, showed it to my daughter, click, done. 14 days later, it was here from China. And so when we parlay the fact that right now, we are all the masters of our domain from a consumer standpoint. I don't have to go to Target or whoever. I can go to Amazon, right? And so what's happened is as our consumer life has gotten easier, we want that in our business life. And it used to be easier on the business side than it was the consumer side, right?
Right.
And so now it's, you know what? I want my business to function just as easily as I want to buy in my business as easy as I buy on my phone from Amazon.
Absolutely. It's that B2C mindset now, but it's in the B2B world. And then as you alluded to also at the same time, businesses looking to spend less, looking to be more efficient, cost efficient with how they're spending for sales. And so inside sales, more efficient model from a spending standpoint too, right?
It is, right? I can get the same level of service, if not better, and how I want it from my inside salesperson. You know what? I don't need you to come to my office. I'm happy to do a video call with you, but for the love of God, please give me a heads up. But if I don't need you in my office, just give me what I need. I'm good. I've done my research, right? And there's research out there that talks about too how the B2B buyer is more educated, right? Where I can go on, I can get specs. And so when I show up somewhere to have a conversation, I don't need you to sell me. I need you to help me problem solve. So I'm that person. If I'm going to go buy tech, I window shop, right? I'm a Microsoft gal, I know. So I love my service. I'm all about productivity from that standpoint. I know what I'm doing. I'm good. So, and it was Leadership Summit a couple years ago at this point. And a couple weeks before Leadership Summit, I had gone in, looked at it, pretty good, got my questions answered. And then literally like the Friday before the Monday I'm supposed to leave, I walk up to the lady and go, I need the Surface. And she goes, oh, okay. I go, that one, just go, please. Thank you. I'm good. I got to go pick up my kids from school. She was like, what is going on? I go, I know. I'm not trying to be pushy. I'm just telling you I was here before. I'm good. This is what I need. If I have any questions, I'll call, I'll ask, whatever. And she's like, okay, do you need a keyboard? I said, yes. And God bless her. She went and just got the black one and we're all good to go, you know?
What you're saying right there typifies the modern day sales experience for B2B, right? For a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So Dionne, so tell people now, I guess the main thing we were having everyone here do for the summit is tell stories about how inside sales, obviously you're not operating in a vacuum. And you and I have talked about this in previous episodes of podcasts where it's much more collaborative now and how different teams work, different roles work, et cetera. So can you discuss a few of the ways that you've helped align teams in ways that have driven revenue and made operations that operate that much more smoothly with inside sales sort of being a focal point in strategy?
Yeah, great point. And so I think, we hear terms nowadays like, oh, let's remove friction and so on and so forth. And I get it. So I think it's a common sense thing that says, how do I get from point A to point B the easiest freaking possible way? Right. And so as a practitioner, it was, let's sit down and what is our mission here? What is our goal? What are we trying to accomplish? Right. And so it's really sitting down and going, hey, marketing, sales, product, what are we trying to do here? And once that is defined, then you say, okay, so here's my role, right? And so I had used an analogy at the ISP Leadership Summit. I said, let's pretend we're going to make a cake. And our deliverable is a cake. And you get to be the eggs, and you get to be the oil, and you get to be the butter, right? This is how we need to approach taking our product to market. And then we need to say, well, does my customer want a blue cake or a white cake? Right. And then it goes, well, who's in charge of frosting? Because then that person needs to put the right frosting on the cake. That person who puts frosting on the cake is not the eggs. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when we look at that's the analogy we need to keep in our head that says, if I am this particular ingredient to our overall success, this is what I need to do very well, right? So that's, as a practitioner, what we really focused on was, okay, my team is responsible for being on the phone, right? They call it sell time now. They call it pay time now. Take your pick, right? I say to people, if you're not talking to customers, you're not getting paid.
100%. Right.
Keep it simple. And so our job in inside sales is to be having conversations with our prospects and customers.
So in a way, you're talking about defining roles and establishing people. This is your lane. Stay in it. You're supposed to be on the phones. We're going to set up to where it's very easy for you to be on the phones. You're not having to prospect. You're not having to go get data on how to reach out to people. We're making it simple for you. If you're in inside sales, this is what you do. And if you're in marketing, this is what you do.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Right. And, oh, you need a different color frosting. You know what? I'm not the person for that, but let me put you in touch with the frosting department. Right. So if somebody comes back. And so I had a team at a time where we were very, very tightly aligned with marketing. So we were consistently meeting with, we had marketing, we were cross-pollinating. I call it a practice of everybody get up and move one chair to the left or one chair to the right and sit with these people. Not only should we be doing shadowing and sidecarring with our reps from an onboarding perspective, we should absolutely be doing the same thing with our marketing counterparts. Product had better be on your calls, right? So there's this cross functionality that says, let's listen in with each other in order to gain knowledge.
That's that's fascinating, because that's exactly what we've had several people I've interviewed for the summit say is shadowing. Very simple way to align teams, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think to take it a step further, it's a function of, okay, in this particular quarter, what is it we're trying to solve for? So it's not just shadowing for the sake of shadowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's shadowing for the sake of, am I listening? Do I have a problem with my handoffs? Do I have a problem with my service level agreement? Do I have a problem not knowing what color frosting my customers want? Right? So we need to make sure we're guiding those conversations that say, what does our feedback loop look like? And what are we listening for right now? Do our handoffs, are we dropping the baton? Because we're not going to get a second chance at this.
That's so that's fast. So every quarter you have a specific function, if you will, that people are responsible for becoming experts in by learning how the other side works.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. And so handoffs. So you have handoffs. You have service level agreements. What are some other things that people can do with that?
They can either create or enhance their rules of engagement. Right. So a lot of times we'll hear, from field sales, well, inside sales is taking this or taking that, or the product is this, or my leads suck, and blah, 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 right?
Right.
So I think all of that is anecdotal. And so when it was me as a practitioner, or now when I talk with clients, I say, do you know? Beyond a shadow of a doubt. How many customers have you talked to that you've heard this from? Oh, I don't know. I'm hearing that from so-and-so. Wait. So you, right, marketing are pushing back on the salespeople, but how many calls have you actually listened to? Right? Or sales, you're pushing back on marketing that the leads suck. And how many times have you invited marketing to sit with you? And
so if I could draw a parallel, you're relying on hearsay, which by the way, for those who don't know, Dionne is the resident expert witness on inside sales. For Orange County, for the city of Orange County for law. That's amazing. Okay. So great points. Keep going.
Yeah. So don't rely on hearsay. So it's a function of, you know what? Our customers are saying they want this in a product. Okay. So was product on that call? Were you able to record that call, right? Do you have a call recording platform whereby you can mark those calls, right? So it's great that there's feedback, and it's great that most people want that. How do you start quantifying that, and how do you get rid of the hearsay and objectivity?
Absolutely. So you're talking about figuring out how to use data maybe to start telling the story instead of just relying on secondhand news. And Dionne, have you seen people doing that, or how they come to find a source of record or a source of truth?
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
It's a good question, and at the end of the day, it's hard. So for companies that are a little bit newer, that are open to change, right? There's typically a team of folks from across departments that come together, and they decide. They make a decision, and they go, here's our purpose, here's our mission, here's our vision, here's what we're going to measure, here's how we're going to measure it. Here is our system of record.
Right. So that it's top down, essentially. You have to get the sides aligned at the top before you can start doing that stuff. Okay, great. And so I guess going from here now, tell us about some of the recent teams you've helped in terms of aligning and driving their teams. We also talked training too, because that's a big thing with you. I know we've had some great conversations on that, because I think that probably goes a lot to the heart of this, because you have to teach teams how to align them properly, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not training from a standpoint of here's how you make a call. Mm-hmm. I think it's training from a here's how you care.
Ooh, okay. All right, great point. So go ahead and elaborate on that. Yeah.
So one of the organizations I worked with is amazing inside sales leader, and she is on it. She is hip to hip with marketing. She's very clear. She's very, here's what we're doing. And so I call it a four-legged stool. There's purpose, there's perspective, there's clarity, and there's the ability to execute. And so when we think about it from that perspective, it's this leader has all of those, right? And so it's very, very, our purpose is, you are an SDR team, here's what you're doing. You are an AE team, here's what you're doing. You're a solutions engineer, here's what you're doing. You are channel, here's what you're doing, right? And so the more purpose we have, perspective we give with clarity, the more we can have teams that execute.
That makes perfect sense. And so perspective, give me an example of how do you add perspective as a leader?
Yeah. So this is where somebody comes in and goes, oh my gosh, our product doesn't work. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, what? Because we have, 100,000 users or whatever.
That's weird. Yeah.
But as salespeople, it happens, right? Or product will come in, or somebody comes in and goes, your salespeople aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, what? And so as a leader, we need to come back and go, gosh, you know what? Tell me more about that. And then we start kind of talking people off these anecdotal cliffs. And we go, oh, wait, so what you're saying is you had one call, here's what happened, and here's, you know what I mean? So that's when we talk about perspective, and then we talk about training as a mindset. It's more about really having people understand their you are here dot.
Makes sense. Right.
And we absolutely, right? I don't work for the TSA, but I want people that if you see something, you should say something. But
absolutely.
And it should not be anecdotal. It's that phrase that says first time is an accident, second time is a coincidence, third time is a pattern. So when we think about it in that way, it's kind of like, I want people on my team that are smart enough to do that. Oh, wait, you know what? This is the third time I'm hearing this from a customer. I'm going to go talk to my manager about it, and we're going to figure out how to capture some data.
Gotcha. That's a great point. So you're saying, if you have a customer issue with one particular issue, wait until there's been multiple recurrences of it. And then when you go to your manager, try to figure out an action plan using data going forward for how to fix it.
Yeah. And I think what you said there is really important, Jeremy, because a lot of times people will spin, right? And people get wrapped around the axle. And what is urgent and on fire must be the most important thing I have to do today. And we all know that's not the case. And so from a perspective standpoint, we have to decide, oh, wait, are we really going to go and look at tools right now? Because we're in the middle of Q2. Is this what we want to be doing right now? Well, this is broken. Okay, well, that doesn't mean we need to fix it right now. So let's be very deliberate and very intentional with where we are spending our time, because there's only so much of it.
That's a great point you just made about it. If it's broken, do we need to fix it right now? Because I work at a startup, and we, one of the things I see and that kills me all the time is like, oh, this part of the process, needs fixing, and it's not perfect. It could be better. Even it might even be broke. You might just see there's room for improvement here. But is that where I should be focusing my time? Right. And how do you judge then where there's the most critical need for how do you focus people, and how you decide where to focus as a team? What are the ways that top performing teams do that?
Yeah, it's hard. There's no two ways around it. But I got to tell you, I have now an 8-year-old, and she's in gymnastics, and she has made team for gymnastics at a club level gym. She is at the gym 12 hours a week. She does more conditioning than I have done in the last 10 years, right? And the workouts got real. But this is also a gym that produces junior Olympic level athletes. This is a gym that produces gymnasts that go on to D1 full ride scholarships. And they are very, very deliberate and intentional with how they train their gymnasts so they don't get hurt.
Right.
And because it's not an easy sport, your body hurts. And our daughter, about 2 or 3 weeks in, she didn't want to go. She's crying. I don't want to go. Coach so-and-so is really hard on me. You're right. But you need to do what she says, because if you don't, you can hurt yourself. And she's crying. And I said, you know what, Munchkin, just because it's hard doesn't mean we don't do it.
So essentially, what you referred to maybe is it's oftentimes people will avoid the hard things to change and look for easy stuff maybe sometimes, as opposed to that.
Absolutely. And not only that, we go, well, this person has their own agenda and they've been here for 25 years, or they've been here in the world of a startup. They've been here for 2 years. So they're the most tenured person and they're never going to change.
Interesting.
Right?
Right.
And so as we come together as a group, there has to be that one person that isn't afraid of it being hard. And as much as we all love decision by consensus, at the end of the day, there can be only one. And there's going to have to be somebody that's going to kick some ass if it needs to be.
I love it. And so you're saying usually what you see is there's a high-level VP, someone who comes in and
cuts through the noise,
takes the initiative, makes the hard decisions. And often the consensus will not necessarily want to do that or choose to do that. It's typically somebody who is willing to come in and, make those difficult decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that, from organizations that are successful, there is that. It doesn't mean people aren't heard.
Sure.
Right. And it doesn't mean we should be unkind. Right. But there's a matter of, you know what, I hear what you're saying. However, this is the direction we need to take right now. Are you on board? Right? So there's this person that can cut through to the heart of the issue and drive it forward. Because you can't have somebody go, well, that's great that you're going to do that, but I'm not going to participate. Sure.
They have to be able to drive the change as well. They have to get people willing to buy in and follow them.
Yep. And you know what? We love your idea. We can't do it right now. This is what we have to do right now. Right? No, my son, you may not have cake for breakfast. Right? But you can have cake for dessert after you eat all of your dinner.
Sure.
And so those are the things. So it's a leadership issue.
It's a great way to put it. That's, as Liz was about to say, that's just a quality of great leadership right there. And so our great leaders, so let me ask you this, and for people you see who align teams well, who get people on board, who buy in, what are some of the, describe that person usually in terms of leadership qualities they have that tend to pervade that type of person?
Yeah, those folks listen more than they talk, and they ask really great questions.
Those are great. All right, so those are two perfect ones right there.
Yeah. There's a great article in the Harvard Business Review. I actually bought the hard copy on my way from Orange County to Chicago last week for the AISP Leadership Summit. And it was a great edition. I think it was the March, April. And they were talking about scaling when cash isn't scarce. There's a great article in there about that. And then there was one too about the CEO, getting out of the CEO bubble. And both of those articles really centered around and honed in on people, right? Cash isn't scarce. There's plenty of it, right? Please stop raising my taxes. It's how you're spending it.
Right.
And so it's, if I have access to capital and I have capital, what is my next most important valuable resource? It's my people. So it takes, and then it's the CEO bubble was talking about, you have to listen, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You cannot be surrounded by a bunch of yes people. right? You have to really be able to get out there and get uncomfortable, get challenged. Again, not in a rude way, right? But you have to be able to you have to be willing to hear the bad with the good, because not everything is good.
No, those are great. Those are great points. And so being a great listener, like you said, and then being able to ask smart, incisive, important questions, fearless questions too. Getting that sort of feedback with your people and surrounding yourself with people who will tell you honestly and truthfully, here's the situation. Those are sort of just pivotal steps in general. Right.
Absolutely. And then come to a conclusion with the next step, right? These are folks that may or may not necessarily be a driver, but they need to have some next steps with it, right? Things can't stay stagnant. Look at Kodak. Look at what was the map company, the Thomas Register, right? Or the Encyclopedia Britannica. Good Lord.
I'm not familiar with those stories. Can you share those real quick?
Yeah. So, I mean, Kodak doesn't exist anymore. Right?
Spoiler. Yeah.
My brother was a truck driver in the city of Chicago. Loved it. Right? And so there was a map book. I can't remember the name of it, and I don't want to say it the wrong way. And it was literally, and it was very detailed and so on and so forth, right, to get around the city and the suburbs. And it was probably very dangerous, but this is what they used.
Right.
And this particular organization didn't want to go digital. Oh, it's a fad.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
well,
really? How's that working out for you? Right? And then Encyclopedia Britannica didn't go digital for the same reason.
Now there's a little thing called Wikipedia, everyone.
Right? Which is another great story.
Yeah.
And so Wikipedia is a great story about giving people the right guidelines to create this amazing repository. That's all free.
Yeah. And they embraced change, and they weren't afraid of it.
Right.
And they embrace the new emerging ideas coming to a head.
Yeah. So I think it's all of that. It's, in the session we had at AISP, we're like, you guys, we live in a really safe environment, right? And there's going to be people that cringe at what I say next. The worst thing that's going to happen is we may lose some money. Right? I'm not saying that's good.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to be careful. We need to be fiduciarily responsible. But chances are, unless you're a medical device and something along those lines, or SpaceX, nobody's going to die.
That's right. No one's going to die from buying your software, hopefully,
right?
or buying skills.
Fired, right? Or promoted.
Yeah.
So, let's listen and ask questions and be smart and be deliberate and be intentional and listen for what our customers want. Do they want a white cake with pink frosting, or do they want a chocolate cake with blue frosting?
Oh, it's beautiful. Tying it all back together. Dionne, I love it. I'm going to ask you this because I wanted to ask in general, but I think you kind of hit on some great points in general here. But so of all of those, what would you say is the number one most impactful thing that clients can start doing tomorrow? You've given us like the full picture here. And I almost didn't want to ask this because it's you kind of made a point that there's multiple things need to happen. But if there's one thing people can start doing and leaders can start doing in terms of mindset, in terms of how they deal with people, whatever, what would you recommend they start doing tomorrow to help align their teams and start driving growth successfully?
Ask questions.
That's a great answer. That's an amazing answer. Ask questions to the employees, to their customers, to their peers, all that sort of stuff.
Yes. Get super curious, and then 1A would be execute. It's Koru mentioned that, right? And there's been talk about this too in the industry. It's just grit, right?
Yes.
I'm not here to write your term paper for you. I'm not your helicopter parent. You're an adult.
Grind through it and
show me you got it.
Show me you got it. I love it. Go earn it, as John Barros would say.
Absolutely. Right?
I love that phrase. I think that's the biggest. I think that's the number one. That phrase just says it all.
Yeah.
or
Right.
the right thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. So I think, you know, as a leader, as a new leader, when I transitioned to that chair, it was, how do I start asking questions? How do I give my people perspective? How do I talk people off a proverbial ledge? Um, and that when I work with clients now, it's exactly that. It's the perspective, because, people that are new to inside sales, I think the amount of work and effort and time it takes to truly build a good team is underestimated.
Yes.
Whether it's inside or outside, right? To do sales well, right? To what John Barrow says, you have to earn it. And you can't be afraid of that work.
That's so true. And I think that people think about engineering and stuff as these big, monumental, you have to be, intelligent mind. I'm trying to think what the word for it is, but these tasks are very mentally taxing. I think building great sales teams is the same thing, right? I don't think there's any difference.
No, you are very tired, and you're dealing with people.
Yes.
Right?
The most complex of all, right?
Absolutely. You don't know if they had a bad day. You don't know if they had a good day. You don't know if they're talking to you because they're happy, and then the next time you talk to them, they're underwater and they're cranky.
Yeah.
And so we've all done it. We've all been there. And so when the biggest aha moments I've seen with not only myself, but with clients I work with now too, is they turn that corner and they start asking questions. And number one. And then number two, there's I can only do one thing at a time. So I'm going to do that thing really well. And then there's the third thing that says, this is really hard, but it doesn't mean we're not going to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's the mindset. You ask the right questions and then execute, figure out what to execute on, and then continue to push through it, no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah, because it will be, right? And because, again, it comes down to people with their own agendas. So I'm going to say one last thing you were talking about. I love Star Trek. And I do. And I think it's the second one where Admiral Pine says to Captain Kirk, you don't respect the chair, captain's chair. Because if you think about Star Trek, for those of you that have seen it, right, they always show the bridge. And two things about that captain's chair. One, there is always somebody in it. It is never empty. Captain leaves the bridge, his first officer goes. If he leaves the bridge, it's somebody else. That chair is never empty. There is always one.
Love it. Right.
So in your organization, there's always somebody in charge. That chair is never empty. And for those of you that are familiar, right, Captain Kirk takes these crazy risks. And I'm not sure how it works, but in every movie, the Star Trek Enterprise is demolished and then rebuilt. But the Admiral says to him, you weren't ready. And here's the problem is you don't respect that chair. That chair is responsible for a crew, for a ship, for a mission, for reporting back to Starfleet. Respect the chair. And so people go, gosh, Dionne, am I ready for leadership? And I go, do you respect the chair? Because here's what you're signing up for.
A lot of responsibility, very, very hard work. And the livelihoods of the people under you, right? To some extent. Yeah. Well, I love it. Dionne, this has been amazing. I know we're running out of time here, but this was a outstanding interview, and I can't wait to publish this. Can you tell people how to get in touch with you and where they can learn more about Inside Sales by Design?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I might be the only Dionne Mischler on LinkedIn. If I'm not, I'd love to hear it. But definitely please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. In my summary, there's a link there to book some time with me if you want to chat, no strings attached. I love to talk with folks and hear what they have going on. You can also go to my website, Inside Sales by Design, to kind of take a look. I have a SlideShare page as well with some content that I've published. Feel free to download that if that'll help.
Awesome. And yeah, I love talking with you. I think you have one of the most profound viewpoints in general on sales today and just the front office in general. So Dionne, thanks so much. This has been excellent.
Thank you, Jeremy. Talk with you soon. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And that concludes this presentation for Aligned 2017.